So, as we start Unit 3, we are going back, like I said at the intro, kind of heavily back into the percentage thing. Sure. And so, when we're looking here on this first page, we are going to talk about part and whole and percent. Now, that seems like a pretty straightforward thing, things that you've talked about before, but let's talk about how you'd find them. So, when we're looking for a part or a piece of something, that is going to be your percentage times the whole. Now let me give you an example of that. So let's say I ask you to find 70% of 500. Might even look at that kind of like a discount or something like that. So if I want to find the part, you take the percent, remember, as a decimal always. So if we need the decimal version of this, we're going to divide it by 100. So 0.70. So here, that would become 0.70 times 500. And that part, or that percentage, or that discount would be 350. Okay, so percentage times the whole. Speaking of the whole, be like finding the whole. Now, how would I find the whole without knowing the whole? That kind of seems strange or counterproductive. It's not, because it depends on the info that we have. So if I'm going to take the whole, I'm going to take whatever part that I have and divide it by the percentage. Okay, so what would that look like? That'd be something like 65 is, oops, I almost put the wrong part there, is 40% of what, or what number? So here, maybe I know the discounted price of an item. Huh? And I know what the discount is, but what I'm trying to figure out was what was it supposed to be going for originally? What did I pay for it originally? Since I wrote so big, I guess I'll do the example over on the other side. So here, I would take my part, my 65, and I'd divide it, again, as a decimal, divide it by my percentage. Keeping in mind that if I'm looking for the whole and I have a part, the number better be bigger. So like if I accidentally would multiply instead of divide and the number's smaller, you're like, well, that makes no sense. 65 isn't going to be, let's say I did that, 65 times 0.40. Would it make sense that 65 is 40% of 26? No, that's bigger and that's smaller. That doesn't make any sense. So if you're looking for the whole, it's got to be bigger. And yes, it can be decimally. This is real life. It actually works that way. And then finally, what if I'm just trying to find out the percent of the sale? So if I'm looking for the percent, that's going to be the part divided by the whole times 100. Because again, I don't want the decimal, I want the percent. So, let's say, what percent of 200 is 50? Okay? So somebody said, hey, this is normally $200. I'll give you $50 off. And you're curious on what percent that is. Nothing too fancy this time. Take my part, the smaller number, divided by the whole, the bigger number. And whatever answer you get will multiply by 100. So if I do 50 divided by 200, that's 0.25. That's the decimal form of the percent, but it's not the percent. So we're going to multiply by 100 and get that percentage. So anytime I'm trying to tell the difference between these, again, I just got to know what piece I'm looking for, and I've got a formula in words and some examples and things here to work with that. So where does that come into play in a business? Lots of places, actually. Okay, the first part is where a percent of change occurs. How much something has changed relative to its original amount. So when I have a change in percentage, that can be an increase. I might be increasing my prices. Or it can be a decrease. It can be going down in value. So the amount of that is the difference between the original and new value. Now I know that's a whole lot of wordiness going on so far, so I want to make sure that we get at least one example over here, if not a couple, for you to be able to see this. So when we talk about making like an equation out of this, the change is going to equal your percent change, again, as a decimal, times the original amount. So you're like, okay, so what could something like that look like? Well, let's see. So let's say I know something changed. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this as I go. Or do I want to do it that way? Okay, let's do it this way. Okay, so let's say something originally was $60. Now the new price is $45. So I've got two things I've got to look at here first. First, I got to see what the difference is going to be. So I'm going to subtract the two values. Bigger minus smaller. So there's a $15 difference between the old and the new. So now, and I'm trying to see, did I just flip these? Let's find out. I don't think I M times. I think I put the wrong sign in. I did put the wrong sign in. Oh, Hardy. The math teacher did a boo-boo. It happens. We got to make one change in here. A boo-boo. I'm dividing and I hit multiply. I apologize. That's the first mega boo-boo I've had here. So we're going to take our difference and divide by the original. So whatever I get here decimally, again, we like decimals until we're trying to describe it to somebody as a percentage. 0.25, but we know to multiply that by 100. And since the price went down, that's a decrease. So we compare the two prices, my original and my new. Always divide by the original, though. Whatever amount you started with. And if it went down, it decreased. If it went up, it increased. So let's play off of that. One more example here, then I want to do one on the worksheet with you. I'm not going to do this whole note sheet today. So let's say originally we'll keep life simple this time. Originally we're at $50. And my new price, thank you inflation, is 100. The first step will never be different. The first step, you do bigger minus smaller. Okay, we never want to get a negative number here. So it's gone up $50 in price. So now you take your original 50, your difference 50, divide it by your original, which in this case is also 50. Oofta, this is going to be big. Now watch it here. The temptation's going to be there. 50 divided by 50 is 1. It doesn't mean it went up 1%. 100, because you still got to multiply that number by 100. So that doubled in price. It was a 100% increase in price because the new is higher than the old was. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of me going crazy into all this other stuff, percent change is enough thing to play with for now. So over on page 3, we'll come back to the others later. The practice over here asks us to find each percent change to the nearest percent, see if it's an increase or decrease. So again, when you get over here, all you're doing, we're not going to make this real complicated. 2 steps on every one. Bigger minus smaller. Once we knock out bigger minus smaller, you take your answer from number 1, your difference, divide it by the original, the first value you see. Do not switch the order up on those. So again, I'm going to take that, multiply it by 100, and it says round it to the nearest percent, so I will. And since the number got bigger from old to new, that's an increase. If the number would go down like it did in number 5, it's the same exact process. You're just going to put a decrease on it instead of an increase. Okay? And again, we're kind of holding it back a little bit today because I want to give you the opportunity